Hello, good morning, everyone. And for those who are watching us from a different time zone, good afternoon or good evening. My name is Marilyn. For those who are new to our platform, I'm the founder and CEO of Customized Training Solutions Private Limited or CTS. And we are passionate about helping leaders and organizations who are continuous learners and action takers to transform and thrive in all aspects by co creating and customizing programs with our world class resources. We have served over 3,000 leaders from over 30 countries in different industries, and that includes Petronas, Sony Mobile, PruLife UK, Ayala Group, Chevron, Tencent, Jollibee Foods Corporation, and Shell, to name a few. And the reason why we are organizing several interventions, including this interview, is we would like to help leaders who don't know how to stay relevant and adapt in the next normal, those who find it stressful to lead and ensure performance on a hybrid setting, and those who are afraid that you can't keep your team or a business. So, to be able to stay relevant and continue to lead effectively in any situation, do join us in this conversation. And today, it's my great pleasure to introduce one of our favorite coaches and mentors in a mentorship program I'm in, Kevin. He spent decades leading multinationals in the financial services industry. He held a variety of executive positions from senior vice president of operations to head of sales to vice president of HR to president and COO. Wow, right? In 2018, he hung it up to start his own firm called BDF Corporation, which provides advisory services and operational expertise to business owners and executives on three continents. Their tagline is "We monetize genius." I love that. In the past 14 years, he worked with hundreds of owners, CEOs, C-suite executives to help them monetize their genius and help them scale or pivot in a complex, uncertain world. He has spoken to thousands of business owners at conferences around the globe on a variety of business topics, all based on one prime directive of how to add value to the market and the people you serve. Today, Kevin co-owned four other businesses in the healthcare, technology, manufacturing, and marine energy spaces, in addition to leading the charge of BDF Corp. And he is married with two children and is terrible bass player but can't seem to give it up. So without so much further ado, I'd like to invite Kevin. That's a
Thank you.
great introduction, Kevin.
Thank you very much, Marilyn. Very kind of you.
You're welcome, and it's my pleasure to have you today. Again, I've known you from the mentorship program with Kane and Alesha, and again, I mentioned that you're one of the favorite coach and mentor for most. I've seen like a lot of comments in my post that I'm interviewing today, and he said like, oh wow, Kevin. Yeah, so we just can't get enough of you. So today I'm super excited to learn from you again and to like add value to our audience,
Sure.
um, on this topic on leadership and transformation. So to start with, um, please share with us your leadership experiences. If you have like influencers that you'd like to mention to us, and probably a favorite leadership style.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, in terms of influencers, there's probably too many to mention. I've had so many wonderful people, and I've had some pretty tough people too. One mentor told me one time, "You'll learn as much or more from a bad boss than you will from a good one." And so I'm grateful to those which maybe weren't my style as well, because I did learn a lot. But there's a couple of people that I'd like to mention as influencers, particularly. The first one would be my mom. To
Mhm.
be honest with you, she's had probably the most impact on my leadership style. Um, I'll give you an example. Here's why. Uh, Here's a woman who her entire life grew up as a farm girl. Okay.
Mhm.
She was 23. She met my father, married him. They had 9 kids together. Okay.
Wow.
And my father, we came from a very modest family. My father worked 3 jobs just to barely keep food on the table. But and sadly, um, in 1971, my father and my brother were killed in a car accident. Now,
Mm-hmm.
six of us, nine kids, were still at home. My mother had never worked outside the home. She had a grade 8 education, okay, and went to work to make sure that she could feed her children, right? She went door to door selling encyclopedias, frozen foods, everything that would make sure, and she would work from, early in the morning till 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. She would travel to faraway places, as far away, and drive very late at night. It scared the heck out of me as a little kid. I used to wait up waiting for that door to open so that I know that she would be home. But what was interesting about this was her love of her life left her, right? In a terrible accident. But she had this quixotic optimism that somehow we were going to make it through. In those really, really dark times, she just knew that there was something better. And so even when she didn't feel it, like she said, the only thing that kept her from jumping off a bridge sometimes was the fact that she knew she had six mouths at home to feed. And
Mm-hmm.
so she said, but she kept this optimism. And so what I've realized is that optimism in leadership is not only a value, but it's a necessity at times, right? And it's a courageous thing to do, is to stay optimistic, you
Mm-hmm.
know. So I would say probably my mom. The next person who was probably the most influential was a guy by the name of Sapienza. Sapienza was, well, to boil it down quite simply, was a monk. Okay. It was a modern type of monk, but he was a monk, and I was actually studying under him, to eventually become like him, right? And in this school that we were in Brooklyn, New York, okay, it was not a very nice neighborhood. This was many, many years ago, back in the late 70s, and a gang came to the door, and there were about six of us young men who were studying with this monk, and
Mm-hmm.
this gang came to the door and said, "Listen, we're coming in, we're taking what we want, and if you get in our way, we're going to kill you." And so this guy, without even flinching, just stands in the doorway calmly and says, "Well, do what you have to do. I can't let you in." Now, where does one get that kind of courage, right? What do you have to summon to derive that kind of courage? And I thought, I want to be like that guy. I want to develop that kind of courage so that when I walk into situations that are crisis, I can be that willing. He was willing to lay down his life for us. And he wasn't fighting them, he wasn't running from them. He just said, "This is where I stand, and I shall go no further." Right? So, encouraging crisis, I learned from Sapienza. And I think that the third one would be my father, perseverance. He worked so hard. He was, a watchmaker by trade, but he also had other jobs just to be able to support it, because watchmakers didn't make a lot of money. So he
Mm-hmm.
worked hard, and but he persevered because he knew his kids were worth it. He knew his wife was worth it. And so what I realized is that, pursuit of happiness is wonderful. It's a good thing to have, but pursuit of purpose is what will keep you going in both good times and bad. And so understanding purpose, why you're doing what you're doing, and what impact it has on the others around you,
Mm-hmm.
that will sustain you through everything, good, bad, indifferent. So I think those were probably the three biggest influences in my life. Then there's many, many others which I do disservice by not mentioning, but we've only got a short time, so I'll keep it
Yeah.
short. Yeah.
Wow, thank you. And I mean, we're just getting started, and you've already shared three stories, just by sharing who actually influenced you in leadership. And I really love to um, highlight that back again, like the optimism from your mother, the courage from the monk, and the perseverance uh, that you've learned from your father as well.
Hmm. Thank
Okay.
you.
And so having said that, what is leadership for you?
Okay. That's a great question. I really struggle with this question. Um, there's a law in physics, and I wish I knew physics better. I'm pretty sure it's a law in physics that says if you take 2% of a cloud, of a kind of a gas, which is, all cloudy and it has no particular direction. If you can take 2% of that cloud and move it in a direction, the other 98% will follow. You see? And so what I've always felt leadership was about was not about getting everyone to follow you.
Mm-hmm.
It was about getting the 2%. You see? Because it's not about me being able to appeal to everyone. It's about me being able to appeal to the 2%, and the 2% will bring everyone else. You see? So it's
Wow.
my job to lift that 2%, to develop that 2%, to lead that 2%, and then they will lead the others. You see? The
Wow.
second thing, I think, and this was always kind of a game for me, and it was taught to me by the monks actually, is be the first to serve, right? Always be the first to serve, and find new and more creative ways to serve. And I think those two things kind of sum up my leadership style. I think that would be the way I would describe it.
Wow, I really love how you've shared and again reminded us that leadership is about service, right? And it's very interesting. It's the first time I've heard of this concept of like, okay, you only need 2%. I mean, to get influence or lead those 2% and let them lead the rest.
Yeah,
And I guess that's how like most organization in fact work, right? There's C levels, and then there are these um, department heads who actually are the ones who's leading the rest of the team members. And again, like, yeah, it just makes sense. And again, just a reminder for everyone, it's about, being a leader is being of service or serving others, right?
no question.
That's how it how it really has to be.
No question. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and in my introduction earlier, I made mention about next normal, and even before the actual interview, we were actually talking about it,
Yeah.
how like we've been hearing this new normal, next normal, and the challenges that and as well as opportunities, I would say that
Mhm.
the COVID
Yeah.
19 has brought about. So, in your case, in your experience working with leaders, how would you define and describe the next normal?
Well, I like McKinsey's definition of it. I think probably there's probably spot on where they talk about the digitization, the coming
Mm-hmm.
digitization, understanding there's so many different things you have to understand in the complex environment.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but one thing particularly that struck me, if you pardon me, I'll give you a little story again.
Stories. I love stories too.
My father, the watchmaker. Okay, I remember back in the late when digital watches had just come on the scene. Okay, there used to be this big black dial that had orange numbers on it. Like
Mhm.
925, really huge, right? I thought this was the coolest thing ever, right? I said, Dad, you're a watchmaker. You must have these new watches. Are you going to get a new digital watch? And he said, Son, I don't think so. And I went, what? Come on. How can you not have the latest and greatest? You're a watchmaker. And he said, Son, when I look at my watch, I want to see what time it isn't as well as what time it is.
That's interesting.
Context becomes in the new normal, in the next normal, context becomes as important as content. You see? When I think about it, there's so much that is going to be moving so quickly, and so many external forces from so many different places. We see it now with conflicts breaking out, wars breaking out, supply chain disruption. We see all of these different things, and so what will happen now is how do we make sense of that? How do we understand the context we're now operating in? Because as we are doing what we always thought we were doing, the context around us is changing very quickly. And then, so how do we adjust to that context? You see, I'll give you an example. when we're all together at work, when everybody comes into the office, there's two types of productivity. Okay. There's the direct productivity of me sitting at my computer or doing my thing or twisting the widget, right? But there's also what I call ambient productivity. Okay. That's the water cooler conversation where the idea sparks. That's the friendships that are being bonded in the coffee room. You see, because those are the things that keep people tight and together when things get tough. You see, or
Mhm.
the sparks that just fly. And so now we've moved people to their homes. So we have the direct productivity. How do we think about that ambient productivity? How do we how do we encourage that ambient discovery? You see? And so what is the technology that will support that through things like virtual reality versus flexible working systems, project teams, but not only the ambient technology for work, but just creating an environment that keeps people close to you and plugged in. You see, context becomes as important as content, I think, in this next normal. Okay.
That's really interesting. And again, it's also a reminder again for leaders how like it's important to have that, context, and at the same time having that opportunity to have that environment where people can actually come up with ideas, spark
Yeah.
ideas, and um because there are times that I remember this organization. It was just a story I've heard from one of my colleagues before. And in a company where they used to work is that they have to time in, time out, even when they go out on toilet breaks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And but because it has been, but what I understand from another friend who work in that company as well is that because some people have abused that
Yes.
opportunity to, like, hang around, smoke from time to time, go to the toilet and all those stuff. But at the same time, like what most traditional leaders would think is that, the time in, time out, and having that physical presence in the organization is what really makes out, or um, creates a productivity in the organization. But obviously, when the pandemic hits and nobody can work
Right.
in the office, right? Then that's like, oh, okay. It has changed the perspective of a lot of people, of a lot of leaders, right?
So how do I create a context then that wants people to clock in? How do we create a context that people were going to do the work anyways because it's meaningful, purposeful work, or at least there's a reason for it. If it's not as fun, but at least there's a reason that is so strong in me that I know I'm going to give my best. That I don't want to let my other people down, or I don't want to let my boss down, or I don't want to let myself down. Even better, you see.
Mm-hmm.
What are the reasons that we can build context to that work in that distributed environment still gets done? And that really puts pressure on us to be more innovative, more communicative, right? And to create something that gives people the reason, the purpose. The time clock card, it works, no question, has for centuries. But in a distributed environment, it's less effective. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And what becomes now is you have to have a person, they got to clock in for themselves before they clock in for you. They have to have that purpose for themselves before they provide value for you. You see?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's about like the influence that you can create on the 2%, right? It's really
Yep.
like reminding them what gives meaning to your life,
Yep.
what's your purpose, why should you give your best to this organization, and like how can you actually contribute, and setting that context within the environment, whether it's working together in the same space or
Yes.
location, or working in another, location on a hybrid setting, right?
Yep.
So before I can continue on, I just want to acknowledge Moses for joining us today. He said good morning to us. Moses from Collins from India, and he shared, dreaming big and beautiful imagination leads us to be unbelievable future. Just dreaming and imagining things with high hopes, sitting on one place will never bring progress. We will have to work hard to fulfill our dreams and goals, create opportunities. Yes, you're correct about that. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And this is also an invitation for everyone who's watching us live to do join us in this conversation. Um, it's not just about me and and Kevin having this conversation, but also joining us. What are you getting out of this session? Do share with us if you have any questions or any comments, aha moments during the conversation. Do join us.
Yeah,
Yeah. So yeah, thank you so much for again reminding us. And it's all about also not only the context but also like creating that accountability within the organization by reminding them of like how can they live with their purpose, how can they put meaning into their life, whether it's personal or in the workplace, right?
right. It was interesting. I had a group of, it was a project team of about 17. We were creating an artificially intelligent underwriting system for a
Mm-hmm,
financial services company.
mm-hmm,
And, I could have been each one of these people's father, if, so there was quite a gap in age. And one of the things I did when I first got there to work with this team was I came into the room. I was dressed in a black suit, white shirt, red tie, very banker like, right?
uh-huh.
And I said to the people as I sat everybody down in the room, and I said, okay, let's get one thing straight right now. Okay. I care deeply about each and every one of you. And I'd never met them before. Okay. And so they
Mm-hmm.
all looked at each other like, where did they get this guy? He's nuts. Right. I said, let me explain to you what I mean by that before they got too carried away. And I said,
Mm-hmm.
listen, I don't know if you're going to be with the company for 6 months or 60 years. I have no idea. Okay. Some of you will be here a long time. Some of you may choose to go on in other places. It doesn't matter. But what I can promise you is that while you're working on this project, I will be relentless in the pursuit of your personal and professional best. Okay. Why? Because that is by far and away the best gift I can ever give you. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I say, when we succeed on this, and we will succeed, when we hit each of our targets, and we will hit our targets, okay, you will be able to add that to your resume. It will glow on your resume like a gem. So that if you choose to go someplace else, you will have that, and you will have the recommendation of people who will glow about you. What better gift could I give you? If you choose to stay, it will help you and accelerate your career and the opportunities that you find here as well. And your reputation will precede you. So, what you have to understand is that I will not allow you to give anything but your best, because that's the best gift I can give to you. And so, at the end of the project, which was about 18 months later, I got a letter from a 27-year-old employee. And she wrote to me and she said, Kevin, in the beginning, I didn't like you, which made me feel very comfortable. He said, because what I realized is that I was no longer going to be able to get away with what I was getting away with. And she said, working with you in these last 18 months has not only made me a better employee, it's made me a better person.
Wow, that's
That's
really
what it's about. Yeah.
true, true. And also about you've mentioned earlier leadership is about serving others. And what you just shared, the story that you just shared is actually like how it is defined or
Mhm.
how does it happen, right? Because some people doesn't really like understand how do we apply this, right?
Yes.
And that exactly is how you actually apply it as a leader, like being able to help others or serve others by creating those them as a leader that they ought to be, right?
Yes.
And really helping them develop not only professionally but also on a personal level, which is really a gift that everyone um, can get um,
Yes.
for a lifetime, right? And that's I guess the reason why I'm also like amazed how like I get into this space of training, coaching, and consulting, right? Because I realize like how people can shift mindset, behavior, improve skills, and that's something you can't take away from anyone once they get it, right?
Mhm. Absolutely. Yeah.
So
They
it's
will have
just a
that the rest of
beautiful
their
gift.
lives. Yep. Yeah, for sure.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah, and a beautiful gift, I would say. So, anyway, moving on to the next conversation or question. Um, from your experience as a corporate leader, and now actually working with corporate leaders as well, and of course, other business owners, what would you say would be the top three problems that most leaders do face?
Yeah, wow. I think particularly in this environment now,
Mm-hmm,
one of the biggest things that leaders face is how do we stay relevant to the market that we're in,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
right? The ability to disrupt a market is becoming easier and faster. And so how do we stay relevant to the market that we serve? How do we stay relevant to the people that we serve? You see, as people become more and more a precious resource and more a precious asset,
mm-hmm,
right? How do I stay relevant to them, right? So that I have the right to demand their best. You see, a right to extract their best, right? That is a permission driven thing, not a command driven thing.
mm-hmm,
I need their permission to get their best. You see, and so I think relevancy is probably the biggest issue. I think, depending on where companies are at, so many CEOs struggle with so many different things, right? If they're in growth phase, they struggle with managing cash, managing the growth, and finding cash. I think in the next little while, that's going to be increasingly difficult to do and to manage as things get more expensive and cash just dries up, right? So that'll be one of the tough things to do. I think the other things that they're going to find is how do we keep and retain great talent? Really your key talent, because the demographics of the world are just not in our favor. Okay. The world is getting older, and most of the developed nations do not have a replacement rate on their populations. And so there's just going to be not enough people to go around. These shortages we're getting, it's not all COVID driven. Some of it's demographically driven. And where it's not going to get better, it'll probably get worse. So the key is how do we stay relevant to our people? How do we stay relevant? How do we provide the environment for them? How to give them a matching system of values that they can espouse, and how do we train, develop them, and keep them interested, and keep them becoming more relevant, and keep them becoming more valuable as well. I think
mm-hmm.
those are the things that they will wrestle with.
Okay, if I got this correctly, please you guide me. I only wrote down two here. So
Yeah,
the top three will be: first is the staying relevant
yeah,
in the market and people we serve, and
yeah,
then um, I wrote down the how to keep and retain key talents.
yeah. To be
And
honest with you, you asked for three, but I only came up with two, because I think if you
okay.
get those two, you'll have the so many different things that will cascade from that, right? I mean, market relevance is all about innovation. It's all about what I call hyper empathy for your market, hyper empathy, really understanding your customer well enough to be able to spot opportunities, right? This is one of the things that I find so impressive. When I call my bank, for instance, and they say, "Well, you're a valued customer, but you're going to make me wait an hour and a half on the phone." You see, right?
There's no really like connections or
Right,
integration to that
right,
when that happens, right?
right.
So
Yeah,
it's really giving the right experience based on your promise to the
correct. Yep,
customers, right?
that's right.
Yeah. And I really appreciate you validating what I just also shared during my introduction of the reason why we are actually doing this or having this conversation is really to help others to stay relevant and be reminded of what does it really take to have a leader in your organization or in your own business, for that matter, right? And again, um what you've said is really like always something that we've heard and we keep on hearing as well, whether it's an article and a conversation or whatnot. It's really about staying relevant and being able to keep and retain the right talents, which is the most challenge, for most leaders or even organizations, right? And so
Yes.
I'm curious to know, I mean, we will not leave them with all these problems, despite that you have shared as well, like, how to turn it. So what do you believe will be the important leadership capabilities or skills that you must have in this next normal in order to continue to lead effectively?
Um, One of the most important things I think is going to be able to understand or discern noise from signal. Okay. What's noise? What's signal? So there's going to be a lot of things that will command or demand your attention,
Mm-hmm.
and you being able to sort out quickly what's really important, what's consequential versus inconsequential, is going to be absolutely key, because the demands will grow louder. Crises may get more frequent. Okay. And so being able to understand and connect the dots as to what matters and what doesn't, I think, is one of the key skills. Okay. The second thing, which I mentioned before, is hyper empathy. Okay. Hyper empathy for your market, really understanding your customer well, right? So that you're able to uncover the opportunities in what needs they have, what criticisms they have of you, to be able to take those and listen to them and integrate solutions for them, right? Hyper empathy for your employees, to listen to them and understand how they can make things better, right? Hyper empathy for your community, right? Listening to the community. How are we, in context of this community, how are we serving that community well, right? Hyper empathy for your environment, right? The environment that we're in. And then finally, hyper empathy for your shareholder, right? The business, unless the business sustains, it's all just air, right? So the idea is how do we create, and that ability to listen will give you that kind of sense, that you'll hear the if you put your ear, when we were little kids, we used to put our ear to the train tracks. Okay. We put our ears right down on the steel, and you could hear a train miles away, right? You couldn't see it. You couldn't hear it if you took your eyes away, but if you put your ear on the steel, you could hear those trains, you see? And so hyper empathy is like putting your ear on the train tracks. You can hear things a long way off before they actually hit you. So you have the luxury of an advantage over some of your competitors of time to be able to react. Okay. The other thing that I would suggest is the ability to collaborate.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There is a change. What I've found in most companies as they're starting to grow is they compete well, but the ones who grow from small to mid to large companies learn how to collaborate well. You see, they still compete well, but they learn how to collaborate well as well. So they may be through outsourcing of certain processes, or creating, marketing joint ventures, whatever. They've learned that skill to collaborate. Okay. The fourth one would be, and this is one of my favorites, is learn to let go. You have to learn to let go. First of all, stuff that you think has been relevant for a long time will be relevant for less time than you think. Okay. And your ability to let stuff just go is sometimes painful, but is also very necessary. And letting it go creates space for new ideas, new innovations to be able to take hold and integrate inside you. So, and I guess the last one would be probably the most important, is you got to learn to learn. Learning is a skill, right? And I think most people in senior positions already have gotten that, but getting that down into the organization, that, learning still is important at whatever stage you're at, developing and keeping yourself relevant adding skills is going to discover things not only about your work, but about yourself. In the technology company that we have, we set KPIs for every employee on development skills. Like they taking courses where how are you making yourself more valuable to yourself and then to the company, to yourself and then to your community, to yourself and then your family. You see? So the idea is learn to learn, right? I think probably those are the 5 skills that I think would be the most important in the next normal.
Well, thank you for summarizing that for us. And again, I'm flashing the summary. I hope I got that correctly. Connecting the dots, hyper empathy. And of course, that's for all stakeholders like customers, employees, um, community, investors, environment, right? So, and I really love how you summarize it because it's really very holistic in a way, right? Because it really covers a lot of the important foundations in a great organization or in great leadership, right? Being able to learn from the past and grow
Yes.
um, bigger through the hardship that you've been through and connecting the dots on so what we should do next, right? And having that hyper empathy again in your customers, employees, and communities, the ability to collaborate. And I really love that because it's been really a great realization for most people. I would say I remembered a conversation with the direct the no the COO of group COO of Air Asia, where he said that collaboration is queen in this times, right? And I really love it. Also validates the way I work or the business model I have, because it's a lot to do with collaboration. And even the way I serve my clients, it's a lot to do with collaborating with them, really, because
Yep.
that really increases, I would say, the in terms of collaboration, right? Both has their ownership or
Yeah.
accountability towards the results that they get out of the collaboration itself,
Hmm.
right? And
Yeah.
learn to let go. It was a recent conversation I had with team as well, like, the things around micromanaging. And like us, for like smaller entrepreneurs like us, it's sometimes like, how can we trust others that they can do um, or create the result that we want or that we get to do as well, right?
Mhm.
So learning to let go, because you can only grow when you are able to let go, right?
Yes.
And finally learn to learn, and I really appreciate that this is one of my top strengths according to Gallup, learning. So but that has to be true for everyone, right?
Yeah.
To be able to stay relevant, you have to always learn. Continuous learning has been like the top priorities for most leadership and development leaders from around the globe, right? So thank you for summarizing that beautifully. And before I go to the next question, it's just a heart. Thank you, Rose, for giving us a love, and for joining us live. So thank you so much for that. Um, and I thought there's more comments to that, but I really appreciate the love,
Yeah.
Rose, for,
Love that.
for me and Kevin. Yeah. And so what someone told me that this is really a big question, but I mean, we've been talking about leadership, learning, and transformation throughout the
Mhm.
conversation. So probably this could be an invitation to summarize, how does it connect or integrate. um,
Yes.
what do you believe is the role of learning, leadership, and transformation in thriving in the next normal?
It is the oxygen of the next normal. And what I mean by that is, without oxygen, we don't last very long. You see, we can last pretty long without food, little less long without water, not very long without oxygen. You see, and in a world that moves this quickly, which has this much complexity and this much ambiguity, we're going to need to we're going to need to learn constantly and discern constantly.
Mm-hmm.
And the learning piece of it allows you to navigate, right? because as you get new skills, you get a little more confidence, you integrate those skills, you start to realize that they can be useful in this thing. And then the whole game shifts again. You have to learn more new skills. And then what happens is that compilation of skills over time just gives you this ability to navigate whatever comes your way, right? So that
True.
ability to learn and to constantly learn and to create learning environments within your organization and to create a core value of learning, okay, is not only the most thing you can do for your people, it's the best thing you can do for your company, because it's the best thing you do for your people. Because if they feel valued, if they feel that that's the people who talk to your customers, you see.
True.
And if they're feeling valued, they're going to make your customers feel valued. If they're in a learning mode, they'll be able to deal more confidently with your customers, you see. And so this is why we're so anxious, in the companies that I work with and the companies that I run. This is why we're so anxious to constantly be in a mode of what's the most relevant skill, at what level can we help people to learn, right? And let them pick some skills that are directly related, and also a few that may not necessarily be, right? So because it's amazing what happens when, as a banker, I grew up in banking and finance. My favorite thing to do was listen to music, right? And to play music. Those two you wouldn't really necessarily put together. But it was that relief from the banking world, that rest in music, that allowed me to come back reinvigorated to banking. So learning skills that are not necessarily directly related to what you're doing aren't necessarily useless, you see.
True.
If they are refreshing, if they're mind refreshing, if they're soul refreshing, then people come back to the problem, they come back to the work refreshed, confident, ready to do. And we integrate skills, of course, that are necessary for them to do what they want, but also create an environment where they can refresh themselves as well.
Wow. That's really a great reminder, and I really agree with you on that, on like learning is like an oxygen. So like, people just have to hear this one more time,
Yeah.
and read this one more time, because again it allows us to navigate whatever comes your way. And this doesn't just refresh us, but also prepare us from being able to handle whatever situation that we may face in the future, right? I believe in compounding learning as well. That's why I'm kind of addicted to learning and
Mhm.
trying out new things. And what makes learning most effective for me is really like applying it.
Mhm.
Whatever I learn, I put that into action, or put
Correct.
that into practice. So to find out, like, will this actually work for me, or are there better ways for me to, like, to apply this on my situation, on based on my character, based on my knowledge. And it's really like also a good reminder for them that, as you mentioned, it's not about just training about the skills that they need to have, technical skills, but even like having those refreshing uh, moments, learning about music and other things that they might enjoy, or that might give them a different perspective
Right.
on on different situation, will really add value in terms of how can they actually like come out with something different. That's some
Mhm.
another idea or another perspective that might be helpful in whatever they do, right? So thank you for reminding that. And now we go, we move to the last two questions, which I would say are very very open questions. And I would say this, I would always say that these are my Miss Universe questions, which in this case will be a Mr. Universe question. So, um, if there's a magic wand,
Yeah.
or you have a magic wand that you can use, what will you do with it?
What a great question. I had something similar to this morning. I was working with someone from in Switzerland,
Mm-hmm.
and I would use the magic wand to help people truly evaluate and see themselves for what they're truly capable of.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when I was talking with her this morning, one of the things that she would said, "Oh, she said, well, you know," I was telling her, "Listen, you've done well here. There's just some things that you need to work on, but look at what you've accomplished, right?" And she says, "Oh, you know, you just," I said, "Listen, it's as important to look at the things you do well. In fact, probably more important than to concentrate on the things that you don't do as well. You see, because you're going to make way more progress looking at that." And I said, you have to understand when you start to see you as I see you, you will start to really understand what you're capable of. And you will really start taking the limits off of where you can go. You see? So if I had that capability, imagine one, if they could just see them as I see them, if they could just see them for their true capability, what they would be capable of. I mean, I think most people would be shocked what they can accomplish. You know?
Wow. That's really beautiful. And really thank you for reminding us like to see ourselves on how much capable we are actually, right? Because sometimes we always see like the negative things, or I can't do this, I can't do that, or um put a limitation to ourselves,
Yeah.
right? Instead of seeing like how amazing, how much we have created actually, and how amazing we are. And that's really like something that most people do forget, right? And again, that's the work that you do as an advisor, a coach, and as a mentor, really like pointing out to us like, hey, this is you. I just want to remind you, it's just really about like reminding us what we are capable of. It's
Yeah.
really innate to us, or it's already within us. And your work is like so much on like, even without the magic one, it's really like making us and other people that you work with realize how much value, how much capable they are in creating more wonders in this world, right? So
Yeah.
thank you so much for that, Kevin.
Sure. Welcome.
Yeah. And so that leads me to my last question. If you were to ask yourself a question that you can best answer, what would be that question? And since you can best answer it, please do answer it for us.
Boy, this is a question of self-examination for me, right?
Mhm.
If there's a question that I could best answer, um, I've thought about this a long time. Um, the question that I came up with is, have I done enough? Have I done enough for my family? Have I done enough for my work, for my company? Have I done enough for my community? Have I done enough for the environment?
Mhm.
Have I done enough for my country?
Mhm.
Have I done enough for the world? Right? I think in all of those situations, some I've done more than others. Some I think I've done a lot, some not so much. And the point being at the end is it's not about examining what I've done in the past. It's about taking that examination of self into the future. Okay? Because the past I can't control it. It's done, it's over. There's not a darn thing I can do about it. But if I can take that humility that comes with have I done enough into the future, it will inspire me to do more or to do better. Sometimes better is not more. Sometimes better is just better. You see? But but keeping that mindset of self-examination, self-reflection, coming back and looking and saying, have I done what I'm capable of? Have I reached my potential in this particular area? Have I done what I could for the people that depend on me? As CEOs of companies, we're responsible for many lives, and more lives than just the people who work for us. There are the spouses of those people, the children of those people, the pets of those people, all of these different, the families, the related families, the communities they serve, the dry cleaners and the 7-Eleven owners, and all of the people that they support with their family and their household, and the communities that they support, the little soccer teams and everything else. Those are all interconnected into this ecology that is our business, you see. And so, have I done enough to support that ecology? Is my question to myself. And it doesn't matter what the answer is in the past, it only matters what the answer is in the future.
Wow, that's really beautiful. I am like thinking about it, and I think this is also one thing that a lot of us do miss out and have to do on a daily basis, right? Asking ourselves on how can we do better, or if we have done enough, like what you've said, right? And it's really about, like, again, what you've mentioned, it's around reflection, examination of oneself, so that we can serve more,
Mm-hmm.
for and do more for our ecology, for our environment, for everyone around us. And the good thing is that when we actually improve ourselves, when we invest in ourselves, right, not only us will actually benefit from it, like people around us, the
You bet.
environment around us will actually benefit from. And I guess this is also a reminder for most leaders to, like, take some time, like even probably a minute or two, right, in a day, to reflect on if you have done enough, or what else you can do better, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
Thank you. So I really appreciate this conversation, Kevin. As I expected, it's going to be an amazing conversation, very holistic and very insightful. So
Thank you.
before we end this conversation, is there anything more that you'd like to leave our audience with?
Yes, I love you all. And, you know, I mean that without frivolity, right? That what you do on a daily basis matters. It matters to you, it matters to your family, it matters to your coworkers, it matters to your friends, it matters to your relatives, it matters to the community. It matters. And so that the choices you make on a daily basis to do and be your best reflect in the lives of those people who surround you. And so for that, I am eternally grateful. Okay. And I just want you to let you know how grateful I am that you are making good choices. And we don't always make good choices. That's what humility is for. Is to help us to learn to continue on. But the point is that you continue to persevere and continue to strive to make good choices. And those choices are the ones that will sustain you going forward, and not only sustain you, sustain the people around you. And so for that, I love you, and eternally grateful.
Wow, thank you. Thank you for that message. And I really love what you've mentioned, that, whatever we do on a daily basis do matter. So, like, even from the start, you said, the top three people who've actually influenced you are your parents. And that's a great reminder for us parents to be a role model and to do our best on a daily basis, because it do matters. And yeah, make the right choices, right?
Mhm.
Because we're affecting people around us
You are.
more than
Yeah.
anything,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So just to share with you before we end this conversation, thank you, Rama, for joining us. Hyper empathy makes a company smarter and stronger. Retain valuable employees and customers. Thank you. I believe that's the lesson you got from Kevin. So thank you, Kevin, for that reminder. And again, this is an invitation for everyone to, um, let's all collaborate and go through this journey to create more opportunities, to live a better world that
Hmm.
we believe in, right? And we wanted to have, because we can, right?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
Marilyn, I just wanted to say, thank you for this opportunity and for the opportunities you've had to have other great speakers on, because I know you've had some fantastic, fantastic speakers on. And thank you for doing this. This will is a way to reach people that, for many of them, this will be the one thing that gives them an inspiration to change that vector in their life, to do that one thing a little bit better, to be that little bit, to be that little bit better. So
Mhm.
thank you for creating this opportunity for people, and thank you for insisting on people growing and developing. I think that's by far and away the most noble thing you can do. So thank you for that.
Yes. Thank you, Kevin, for appreciating this. Yeah. So again, thank you, Kevin, and for those who are watching us live, I really appreciate all your insights. It's really very helpful and a great reminder for me as well. And hopefully we inspire and motivate like people who are listening to us, whether on a replay or live. And thank you for those who joined us just now live. And again, remember that even the richest investors in this world would say that investing in yourself is the best investment you can ever make in your life.
Agreed.
And with that, we would like to leave you all with this quote from Dolly Parton, that if your actions create legacy that inspires others to dream more, to learn more, to do more, and become more, then you are an excellent leader. Thank you so much, and see you on the next session, everyone.
Thank you all.
Bye for now. Thank you, Kevin.